75 years ago, a single football match did a whole lot more than just decide a trophy. It literally reshaped how two neighboring countries view themselves and their place in the world. Today, we're diving into this explainer to mark the anniversary of what is absolutely, without a doubt, the most shocking event in sports history. We're talking about the Maracanazo. 200,000. Just let that number sink in for a second. Imagine the sheer, unimaginable scale of the Maracana Stadium, packed to the brim with that many people on July 16, 1950. It's like a massive, roaring ocean of humanity. Now, try to imagine that entire ocean suddenly dropping into a stunning, absolute silence. And that brings us to the central question we're looking at today. How exactly did just two men silence 200,000 people? And, well, even more importantly, how did those 90 minutes echo across the next 7.5 decades? Let's get right into it.
Part 1. The Miracle at Maracana. So the on-pitch action was just unbelievable. After kickoff, it was Juan Alberto Schiaffino who leveled the score for Uruguay. And right after that equalizer, the Uruguayan captain, Obdulio Varela, executed this absolutely brilliant psychological tactic. He just delayed the restart. He stalled the game, letting all that pressure mount on the crowd and the Brazilian players. And then came the final, fatal blow. Alcides Ghiggia slipping the ball right beneath Brazilian goalkeeper Barbosa's outstretched arm. A 2-1 win for Uruguay. Guys, this wasn't just a trophy. It was a literal miracle.
Section 2. Uruguay's National Parable. Filmmaker Eduardo Rivas points out something really fascinating here. He notes that this victory gave Uruguay a cultural model, this incredible sense of defiance and pride, but completely lacking in arrogance. Like, instead of parading around the pitch and gloating, the Uruguayan players actually chose to comfort the stunned Brazilian team. They hugged them, they made friends with them on the spot. It's this beautiful template of being heroic, yet deeply, deeply human. And this myth is still so deeply embedded in their culture today. If you go to the cafes of Montevideo right now, people talk about this event in the present tense, as if it just happened last week. Kids can perfectly recite how Obdulio Varela strolled around, picked up the ball, and just stared down that massive crowd. As one historian put it, he literally turned the crowd's own doubt into a weapon. But interestingly enough, the players themselves never actually claimed to be flawless gods. Actually, Juan Alberto Schiaffino flat out admitted that he meant to shoot at the other post and just hit the ball wrong. And Uruguayans absolutely cherish that vulnerability. It proves the myth is imperfect, It makes the whole thing feel deeply personal, like a cherished family heirloom passed down from generation to generation. Which brings us to Section 3, Brazil's lingering existential crisis. If we pivot sharply right across the border, you see how the exact same 90 minutes are defined completely differently. In Uruguay, it's celebrated as a feat, but in Brazil, it is literally referred to as a tragedy. To put that into perspective for a second, Brazil suffered a massive 7-1 defeat to Germany back in 2014. But curators are quick to note that 2014 was merely a shock. 1950, on the other hand, was a full-blown existential crisis for the entire nation. So how exactly is Brazil handling the 75th anniversary of this event? Well, by actively ignoring it. There were 0 floral wreaths at the stadium. Nothing. Instead, the nation is happily keeping itself distracted. They're focusing on their new coach, Carlo Ancelotti, celebrating early qualification for the 2026 World Cup, praising domestic talent from the Club World Cup, and looking at these big corporate renovations at the Maracana. Basically, the historical wound is being totally buried beneath modern headlines. But the crazy thing is, the impact of that day is everywhere if you just know where to look. Get this, Brazil actually used to wear white jerseys. No way, right? It was the Maracanazo that convinced them to ditch the white for that iconic canary yellow we all instantly recognize today. That color was chosen in a national contest, and it was specifically meant to brighten the country's completely devastated mood. It's a real game changer when you think about it. Part 4, the relics of heartbreak. Now, there is one place in Brazil that absolutely refuses to bury the pain. If you go inside the Sao Paulo Football Museum, there's a room called the Rite of Passage. And let me tell you, it is designed to be a chilling sensory experience. The exhibit doesn't open with some loud, booming commentary. Nope. It opens with the pure, haunting silence that followed Ghiggia's goal. They use this frozen black and white footage to show a stadium literally losing its voice. The emotional anchor of this room is so quiet and so isolated.
Sitting right there behind the glass are the goalkeeper gloves of Moacir Barbosa. He basically became the symbol of a man unfairly blamed for a whole nation's heartbreak. But the museum curator believes this display is absolutely crucial. They want younger generations to understand that glory comes through grief. Without the crushing heartbreak of 1950, you don't get the glorious victory of 1970.
And that brings us to this staggering number, 5. Brazil has 5 glorious World Cup wins under their belt. Yet, ironically enough, visitors at the museum ask way more questions about this single, crushing defeat of the Maracanazo than they do about all 5 of those world championships combined. It's wild. Section 5. The speed of memory. Ultimately, we see that memory just doesn't move at the same speed for everyone. For the victors, Uruguay, the memory grows in clarity, right? Their glory continues to gleam. But for the vanquished, Brazil, the memory has kind of faded into the state of discomfort. They've tucked it away into the dusty corners of the national mind where they just try their best to avoid it. But here is exactly why this whole explainer matters today. Memory has a funny way of resurfacing when you least expect it. Think about it. A dramatic, modern rematch, maybe at the 2026 World Cup, or even a critical qualifier down in Porto Alegre, could instantly bring these old ghosts right back to life. It literally only takes 90 minutes for all those old metaphors to come rushing back to the headlines.
And when those ghosts do return, for sure, someone is going to dust off this legendary quote from Alcides Ghiggia. Only 3 people have silenced Maracana: the Pope, Frank Sinatra, and me. What a line, right? It's an unforgettable thought that perfectly captures the mythological scale of what happened 75 years ago. It was a single goal that continues to echo through the very identities of 2 nations. So as the 2026 World Cup approaches, we really have to ask ourselves, when the whistle blows in the Maracana again, whose ghosts will finally be laid to rest, and whose are going to be brought back to life?